Hi, and welcome to the channel. Today is a quick breakdown of mountain pose or Tadasana. When I thought about what pose I wanted to do next, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do mountain pose because, well, you're just standing there, right? But it's not just that. With mountain pose, there is so much that goes into it, even though, yes, we are just standing there and there's nothing fancy. You're not inverting, you're not trying to twist yourself up into some sort of unique shape. With mountain pose, it is our most basic grounding pose. When we return to mountain pose or when we start in mountain, we're practicing our physical and our mental balance. Physically, it seems fairly obvious. You're physically assessing how's your posture, how's your alignment. Am I leaning to one side more than the other? Can I close my eyes during this posture and retain my balance? Mentally, we're bringing ourselves back into the present moment because as we stop and take a pause in our mountain pose for however time it is, during that time, we're generally bringing ourselves back to the breath. So we're bringing ourselves into the present moment. We're not lingering in the past thinking about something we should have done, and we aren't projecting into the future thinking of everything that needs to be taken care of or that we are hanging our wishes upon, but we're stopping right there in the moment and we're taking a second or two just to focus on maybe stabilizing the breath or catching the breath if we've been moving really actively during the sequence, or we're going to take a second to focus back on the posture and really ground down into the mat so we can feel that stability and the strength that we get from the earth, from the mat as we connect. Additionally, when we're in mountain, we also are strengthening into the legs and the ankles when we set up, and we will discuss this a little bit more as I break down the alignment, but you are working into the ankles and the legs as far as strengthening them, and you'll feel tiny little movements, especially as you start to shift the weight back and forth in Tadasana, or maybe balance from one leg to the other when you transition from Tadasana into some other postures like tree pose or maybe moving back into a warrior three. In your mountain pose, you're generally cued two different ways to stand within mountain. If you're moving through a flow, most likely your feet will be about hip width distance apart. And sometimes you may be cued to have the big toes together and then the heels just slightly separated behind you. Now, when you're in that posture with the toes together and the heels separated, you may feel less stable. And that's understandable because you have a much narrower base to support you. So even if that is cued during your class, just know you can take whatever is right for you and open those feet up a little bit to hip width distance. How do we find our hip width distance? If you've ever struggled with that and thought, well, how do I get it just right? What feels like the best and most stable base for me? Well, I've seen this before where you take your feet all the way together, the toes and the heels together, and from here, just lift the heels up, open them out about 4 inches or so. So it looks like you have a big pizza slice in between the feet. And so now the heels are separated, big toes are together. And from this position, just take the feet and straighten them out so that they are parallel. If you're facing the long edge of the mat, then your feet would be parallel with the short edges of the mat. And from there, you can see that your feet line up pretty much at hip width distance. If that still doesn't feel quite right or perfect to you, just adjust as needed, but that should get you very, very close to where you need to be with your feet. The feet are your base, and that is the absolute point where you are going to find your stability and draw that strength and that grounding from your mountain pose when you are on your mat. So you're also going to hear to press into all four corners of the feet. Now, you may want to activate each corner one at a time just so you can feel what that feels like. And that's a really fun movement to take during your class. If you stand in your mountain pose, and for now, we'll just concentrate on the lower portion of our body into the feet. In mountain, just push into the outer pinky toe edge of the feet for a moment and feel what that feels like. Then return back to the feet flat on the mat. Then start to push into the inside edge of the feet. Drive that down. The outside edge may pop up a little bit, and that's fine. And from here, we're going to focus on the back corner of the foot to the back of the heels, pressing down, pressing into the back outside of the heels. And then now take it to the inside of the heels, pressing down in that area of the foot. When you're done with that, return to normal. Allow the feet to just relax. And from here, generally, if you feel like it, you can close your eyes and then feel every corner, mentally establish every corner of the foot connecting with the mat. As you do so, you'll naturally feel the inner arch of the foot lift up and create more stability in the body. Moving up the body, of course, our legs are the next part in our foundation. Within the legs, as you stand in your mountain pose, think of the thighs spiraling outward. And as they do so, your legs should generally just naturally start to draw the kneecaps up and keep them engaged so that you feel strong throughout the lower portion of your body. Moving up to the pelvis, the front part of the pelvis with the two hip points, these little bony protrusions that you should feel on the front side of your body, should be facing directly forward, shining like two little headlights out in front of you. And the tailbone should be rounded just slightly down with a very small curve in your lower back. So not exaggerated. We're not completely tucking it in. We're not completely drawing in the lower belly. And also we want to eliminate having an exaggerated sway back. But we're finding that nice neutral portion of the spine with just a slight tuck of the tailbone. So if you want to practice with your fingertips, taking them to the front edges of the hip points, and just do some pelvic tilts, tilting it forward, exaggerating that lumbar curve, and then tucking the tailbone under, and then really pulling in the navel at that time, and then finding your nice in between. And you notice a big difference as you do that, and you may find some correction of your posture along the way. Coming up into the torso, your navel will pull in so that we don't have the belly just hanging loose, and we're not just letting everything just hang out, but pull in the belly, keep an active core, and the ribs, like in most of our poses, stay knitted together, but we keep a nice long torso throughout the side of the body. As we move further up, when we look into the shoulders and the arms, there's going to be several variations of how the arms are in mountain pose. As we flow through our vinyasa, they come up above us, and maybe they come down through prayer. But in a standard Tadasana, we'll just talk about having the arms separated and down by our sides. When you are standing in your mountain pose and your arms are alongside the body, generally the palms are facing forward. So the thumbs are facing away from you, and the shoulders should be down and across the back. Think of having the chest wide and feeling very open across the collarbone. Fingers should actively reach towards the mat, so the hands generally are not resting with the fingers curled inward, but they're reaching towards the mat. That aids in opening up the chest and the upper part of the body, and you'll see that the arms just naturally float a little bit away from the torso in this palms forward position. Coming up to the head, I'm going to turn to the side. Now you're in your mountain pose and you've worked from the ground up, feet, legs, torso, into the arms and the chest. And now thinking about the head as we're in this position, the chin should be slightly tucked. So we aren't looking up and gazing up. Gaze is directly in front of us. Chin is slightly tucked. And then the sides of the neck are long. And you'll feel the crown of the head reaching up to the sky. Some things to watch out for in your Tadasana pose are standing there and maybe just being a little too relaxed and having the belly slump forward, Or maybe when you're in your Tadasana, you don't realize maybe you naturally lean to the left or to the right. So if you can, maybe find a mirror. If you have a nice studio that you practice in, maybe they have a mirror you can use. Or take a look and make sure that your feet are still in line with the hips. And if you're going from side to side, you should be able to tell that your torso is shifted to one side more than the other. And the last mistake to look out for is locking the knees. If you tend to be a little hypermobile, you may want to lock the knees out in your mountain pose. You're standing strong, you're standing very stable, connecting with the earth, pushing down with the legs, and you may not notice that your knees are locked and push back a little bit. So, a slight bend in the knees, especially if you're hypermobile and know that about your body, a slight bend in the knees will help activate the muscles more and you'll build muscular strength more along the lines of efficiently, and you will have less injury to the joint. You can also practice your mountain pose during the day, just seated at a nice, stable chair to where your legs are at about a 90-degree angle. And you're really just bringing yourself back to a point of being grounded and reconnecting so that the mind is centered to become calm once more. It's a nice little timeout during the day. Also, will correct your posture if you have a tendency. I know I do, as I sit towards the computer, I tend to creep closer and closer to my computer, which naturally causes a lean, probably causes a little bit of slumping in my back. So, reconnect yourself in mountain pose with the feet just flat on the floor. If you can adjust your chair so that it's at a 90-degree angle from your thighs to your calf and your shin muscles, that would be perfect. And then just sit tall. Either allow the back of the hands to rest on the top of the thighs with the palms up. The palms can also be facing down. Sitting up tall. Still drawing the navel in even though we're sitting on a chair. If you prefer and you have the room, arms can come alongside the body with the palms facing the front. Give yourself some room so that the shoulders slide down the back and spread wide so that you stay open through the chest.